The sky split like torn metal and a burning shape punched through the clouds, dragging a tail of emerald fire across the night. It screamed over the ash plains of Calth Secundus and slammed into the slag dunes outside the refinery wall, throwing a ring of dust that rattled the teeth of workers and set prayer flags snapping like frightened birds. The orcs besieging the pipeline froze mid-howl, ears perked, engines coughing smoke as the crater glowed hot enough to turn pebbles to pearls. Plates inside the impact twisted and unlocked. Pistons rose. A cathedral of living alloy unfolded from the wreck as if a star had chosen to stand. "I am Optimus Prime," said the giant of red and cobalt steel, voice deep enough to settle dust. "I will stand where people need me." The green tide answered with a delighted roar and came on with cleavers and rivet guns and laughter that sounded like rocks in a drum. A scrap wagon leapt a berm, roaring, and a boss with iron teeth swung a chain axe for the Autobot's helm. Optimus caught the haft in a palm wide as a sarcophagus, turned, and laid the orc into the ground with the gentleness of a landslide. Bullets sparked and pinged across scarred armor. An exhaust-fed flamethrower painted his chest in orange. He stepped between the refugees and the charging mob because somewhere in his spark an old line of code had ossified into a vow. Behind him, children clutched tech adepts who clutched incense and wrenches and tried to remember the words to contradictory prayers. "Behind me," he said without looking back. "Breathe." He moved like a verdict. Servos sang. He didn't break spines. He broke weapons. He kicked the axles out from under a war bike and caught its rider in midair, setting the greenskin aside so it could wake later and reconsider a few things about joy. He bent the barrel of a big shoulda into a question mark and handed it back. His restraint confused the orcs and delighted them in equal measure, which in orc logic meant a louder charge. Thunderhawks fell from cloud like black crosses on fire, engines eating the night. White armored giants hit the plane in fistfuls, chainswords coughing, litanies broadcasting on crackling vox so fierce even an alien sensors could taste the ozone of faith. One warrior vaulted onto a slag boulder opposite Optimus, helm lenses banked and bright, power sword fizzing like lightning taught how to stand on a line. "Identify yourself, Xenos," he boomed, "before I pass sentence." "Optimus Prime," the Autobot answered, slipping a roaring orc sideways with a backhand that cratered the ground. "I am not your enemy." "In this age everything is," the Marine returned and hurled himself into the melee. They fought shoulder to shoulder because the world left no time for permission slips. Greenskins broke against ceramite and Cybertronian steel. When the last finally realized they were applauding their own funeral and fled toward the fractured ridges, silence came back in shards, the tick of cooling armor, the whisper of wind through prayer flags, the small sobs of people still alive. The Marine took off his helm. His face was a map of wars. His eyes 2 iron nails. "Marshal Rabin, Black Templars," he said. "You speak cleanly for a machine." "I have found clarity merciful," Optimus replied, studying the Aquila carved into the refinery wall and the candles guttering at its base. "Your people feared me. I will not harm them." "Intent is noted," Rabin said carefully. "The Inquisition will want more than intent." She arrived at dusk in a cloak sewn with sigils that made Optimus's scanners hiccup. Inquisitor Halix walked the length of his shadow like an inspector pacing the deck of an unfamiliar ship, eyes flicking, slate whispering. "Unknown pattern," she murmured. "Self-willed construct. Combat capable. Potential heresy." "Potential has 2 directions," Optimus said. "I choose." "We do not ask bolts if they wish to fly," she replied. "We determine where they land. There is rot in the old mine. Orcs came to feed on the fight. Help me cut the tumor and I will stay the Mechanicus from unbolting you tonight. Refuse, and we see what your parts can teach our saints." "I will help because misery asked," he said, untroubled. "Not because your knives are sharp." "Acceptable," she answered, which in this galaxy amounted to thanks. They moved at midnight across a salt flat that glimmered like a dead ocean. Thunderhawks skimmed ground effect, lights masked. The Black Templars walked the hull like statues taught to hunt. Optimus ran beside them, strides measured, the stars freckling his plates. Ahead, mountains tore the sky like black teeth. Sickly aurora bled from their seams and the air tasted wrong. Meat in the sun. The mine had been a cathedral of industry. Now it was a mouth. Flesh welded to iron in obscene marriages. Cables pulsed like veins. Chanting pressed on the thoughts of the living without troubling their ears. Cultists knelt at an altar of rusted bones, and something slept within a cocoon that sweated frost made of memory. Chaos, Halleck said, the word a blade that cut her breath. The Templars advanced as if entering mass, purity seals fluttering, scripture scarred into their plates. Optimus waded through the profane machines with a surgeon's care in a burning hospital. Crimping thick hoses that fed demon engines, tearing down icon pylons, catching a screaming construct by the skull until warp flame coughed and died. The cocoon split. A horned thing stepped out armored in blasphemy. Blade woven from screams, smile too wide for flesh. Clockwork without a taste. It crooned in a voice like leaking steam. Let me pour worship into your emptiness. I am not a cup, he said, and met it. The energy blade he'd salvaged from his wreck hummed with borrowed song. The Templar's oaths, the refinery's whispered prayers, the stubborn arithmetic of a commander who had learned not to surrender even when surrender made a cruel kind of sense. Sparks fell like metal pollen. Twice the demon staggered, offended at resistance from something it could not smell in the immaterium. No soul, it hissed. No flavor. Blasphemy. I am a promise, Optimus answered, shouldering it back through its own altar. They carried their fight across gantries and over slag lakes that reflected nightmares. Hallex carved sigils in the air until the air believed her refusals. The Marines formed a wall the universe might break its teeth on. The demon lunged, hammered his chest plate, found him immovable as a verdict. Optimus caught a horn, lifted, pinned the creature on a saint's rebar spine. It came apart into moths of shadow, and the wind that had watched too many wars blew them away, bored. Silence crawled back into the mine. The Aurora bruises drained. Rabban bowed his helm. Emperor, guide us, he said, then to Optimus, with the rare warmth one scarred knight gives another. You fight as a son of Dorn might. I fight because someone must, Optimus replied. Hallex studied the fading warp rime on his blade, the numbers settling on her slate, the people pulling themselves upright in a world that should have eaten them and tonight did not. You are anomalous, she said at last. But useful. The manufactory city eastward holds a titan in drydock. If chaos or those greenskins or anything else reaches it before rites wake the god machine, this world burns. Marshal, redeploy. Prime, do you intend to remain? I do not abandon the desperate, he said. They went east at dawn over roads of broken saints and sleeping cranes. The Titan loomed asleep in scaffolds like a mountain wearing a crown of spiderwebs. Scutarii with red cloaks lined the gantries, eyes glinting like polished lenses. The presiding Muggos regarded Optimus with reverence salted by greed. Ambulant Sanctum, sang a chorus of vox throats. Submit schematics. Share liturgies. I am not a manual, he said kindly. I am someone. Disputed, the Muggos replied, not entirely without humor. The orcs returned at noon on a storm of exhaust and joy. From the west, cold signatures rolled in perfect formation. Necron tomb ships, beams like emerald proboscises tasting for heat. Halex's mouth tightened. 2 predators for 1 carcass. How long to wake your god? Optimus asked. With correct rites, 13 hours, the Muggos said. With incorrect rites, tragedy. Then we hold for 13, he said, turning to the line. War learned the streets. The Templars anchored intersections with knives and faith. Scutarii volleyed in binary rhythm from gantries, shell casings raining like tin hail. The Inquisitor stood at the heart of a chalk circle, voice carving laws into air. Optimus went where screams pointed. He lifted a collapsed crane from a hab tunnel, pulled 4 workers coughing into light. He body-checked a battle wagon into a smelter pit and watched fire make quick confessions. He stepped into a Necron scythe beam and let it chew his forearm cherry hot while civilians crossed behind him in a spill of fear and stubbornness. His alerts begged for surrender. He muted the noise. He had practice refusing reasonable things. In the 9th hour, a war boss found him. It rode a tower of scrap and muscle, banners stained in victories it barely remembered, claws whirring. Biggest fight, it bellowed, voice a rusted foghorn. Best fight. I don't seek the best fight, Optimus said, catching a whirring claw and feeling Servo scream. I seek the last one. They collided like continents. The boss laughed and shoved. He let it have 2 steps. It grew greedy. He changed the angle, turned, used its hunger as a lever, and flung it into a neat Necron beam that shaved it to a rumor. The greenskins faltered, and faltering is how tides turn when 3 armies share one ruin. Hour 12 came with knives in its pockets. The Necron line did not tire because it did not live. The Templars switched to blades and blessings. Choirs took their places atop the Titan and oiled their throats with faith and machine smoke. Optimus knelt at the Imperator's foot and rested his palm on adamantine thicker than cottages. He did not pray. He remembered. He told the sleeping spirit, quietly as one steadies a shaking soldier, about sunrise in Iacon, about a friend's last laugh under a falling spire, about an oath spoken in cities that now existed only as lessons. Rise, he said. People need you. Gears the size of city squares rolled. Pistons like clock towers cycled. The God Machine opened its eyes and baptized the Manufactorum in dawn. Scaffolds shrieked away like lies discovered. Its first step erased a phalanx of destroyers. Its second made a red mist where orcs had been. Choirs sang until blood salted their lips. 1,000,000 tons of engineered devotion announced itself to the horizon. Even the Necron beams blinked. Rabban laughed, a clean sound surprised to find itself still in the world. Glory, he shouted, and his brothers echoed, and for a heartbeat the war sounded almost like a song. The tide turned. Optimus pressed, but not to exterminate. He pressed to end. He shattered Necron portals so tomorrow would have fewer doors to fear. He toppled orc totems so the next Warak would find less to shout under. He tore a spider of bone and green fire to pieces and fed its limbs to the smelters where someone would one day hammer railings and spoons. When the tomb ships concluded the math and withdrew into their cold beds, and the orcs decided a better fight lived somewhere louder, the Manufactorum exhaled. Silence stood up and stretched. The sky at dawn looked like old steel. The Titan knelt so children could pat its toes. Scutarii reloaded in perfect, exhausted unison. The Muggos watched Optimus with a recalibration that might have been humility trying on a new cloak. Halix climbed a gantry and faced the Autobot with the poise of a gambler who'd won a bet nobody should have made. You defended Imperial property, she said. You stood with the Emperor's angels. In some ledgers you have performed miracles. In others you are a weapon that answers no catechism. Both conditions are intolerable. This world lives because of you. I will not scrub that datum. I did what I could, he replied. I will continue to. Rabban approached with helm under arm, face gentler than war allowed. Fight with us, he said. Swear to the Emperor. Optimus looked at the Titan bowing its head to a child's candle. He looked at the tech priest discovering wonder beneath doctrine. He looked at the refugees lighting votives to an eagle and to a stranger who stood where the fire blew hardest. He considered the miles of stars between this place and the idea of home and decided the distance wasn't an argument against promises. I will not swear to any god, he said. But where the innocent stand in the path of fire, there also will I stand, and I will not fall back so long as power moves within me. Rabban nodded once, a cathedral giving one stone of approval. Halix's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then I will call you what you are useful as, she said. Ally. For now. There are other worlds with this fever. I can provide vectors. Marshal, gather the wounded. Prime, we will speak again. The weeks that followed turned rumor into hope and hope into rumor again, as it always does. On the forge moons of Valis, Pilgrim swore a red and blue guardian shoved a pirate corsair into a sun and then apologized for the mess. In the hive gutters of Galedawn, children claimed a truck the size of a house parked across a nursery door and absorbed a lost cannon shot like a bored father catching a ball. A rogue trader bragged over a deck of heresy-stained cards that she'd seen a machine man argue a tyrannid into a stalemate with nothing but a bridge cable and the stubbornness of saints. The Black Templars, who do not gossip, sometimes cleared a place beside their fires wide enough for truck tires. On the 40th day after the Titan woke, an inquisitorial shuttle met a truck on a ridge above a valley of tents shaped into a star. Soup smelled like truce. The ramp hissed. Halix descended into dust and murmurs. "There is a world 2 jumps from here," she said without ceremony. "Its oceans boil with demons and its mountains are drilling teeth. If it falls, 3 sectors follow. No time for a crusade. I have a ship and permission. Do you still intend to stand?" Optimus looked down at the valley at pot smoke and children playing with string and adults pretending not to weep. He watched the wind push at the tracks he had left coming up the ridge and fail to erase them. He thought of Autobots scattered like bright seeds over cruel soil and decided again what seed he would be. "My intention has never changed," he said. "Good," Halix replied, and for the first time let the steel around her relief relax. "Then let's be inconvenient together." The shuttle rose. The truck rolled. Somewhere back in the manufactorum, a god machine tilted its massive head as if listening to a story it might one day retell with its footsteps. Across the width of a sky stitched by old scars, distress beacons blinked like tired lighthouses. Where the desperate cried and cannons spoke and angels bled and monsters smiled, a knight of living steel took the road with patience and velocity and did not turn aside. And if the knight tried to close over his tracks, the morning came up behind him and kept them open long enough for others to follow.